You're listening to The Ground Down, a podcast where we sit down with industry leaders and experts to discuss issues that affect the civil engineering industry. This podcast is brought to you by EHRA Engineering. Welcome. We hope that you enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to EHRA Engineering Podcast Series, The Ground Down. My name is Chau. I'm the project leader for our Public Works group, and my co-moderator for today is Sivaji Senapathi, who is the practice leader for our Traffic and Transportation group. We are a civil engineering firm, and we always look for opportunities to learn from our industry, our partners, our colleagues, and we also strive to give back to the communities that we serve. So today we welcome Councilmember Joel Castro from City of Alvin, Councilmember Dan Davis from City of Manvel, and Councilmember Adrian Hernandez from City of Pearland. Gentlemen, thank you for sitting down with us today.
Thank you for having us, Chau.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. So I would like to start out by asking our council members, Joe, Dan, and Adrian, about COVID-19 and how you, your families, and also your cities faring under these circumstances.
So for the city of Manvel, as a city overall, we're doing pretty good. Right now we have, I believe it is 6 active cases in our city. 2 of those cases are marked as probable, which means there's a very high chance that they actually have the virus, but it's yet to be confirmed. Thankfully, we've had no deaths in our city so far, and we've been following the governor's orders in regards to starting to open up our businesses, restaurants being able to open at 50% capacity, and we're starting to see the community emerge from doing what they were supposed to do during a period of time, which was social distance themselves, try to just keep within their family units. And thankfully, as a city, we've been very successful as that. As a family, we're doing pretty good. Been married for 8 years, and my wife and I, we have 2 young kids. And so there were times where it was a little crazy in the Davis household because the kids just got stir crazy. But as a family, we're healthy and strong. My father, he lives out in Tennessee, and he's a part of the high-risk population due to kidney transplants that he had. And so his experience has been a little bit different. And so to see it from somebody who's had to go to these extreme precautions to not catch the virus has been eye-opening to what a lot of people have had to go through or experience across the country. But overall, we're doing pretty good.
I'm very glad to hear that you and your cities are doing as best as can be. And of course, we hope and pray for the best for those that are suffering. So Councilmember Joel, the same question to you. How are you faring, you, your families, and your city?
So unlike Dan, I'm not married. But my family's doing good. My mother, my grandparents, my father, they're all doing great. Our cities are actually doing really well. We were lucky to have a financial, not a financial hardship during these times. We have a healthy fund balance in our reserve. Per our city policy, we should have about 25% in reserves, and we have about 46%. So we're doing pretty well there. With the coronavirus cases, as of yesterday, we have 13 active cases. They have been identified, and they're all isolated and taking safety precautions there. So right now, the city, we're doing okay. One of the good things that I guess is a blessing in disguise is that we aren't as dependent as sales tax as other cities. So we don't expect to have that much of a hit on our general fund as some cities may have.
Well, thank you very much. And Councilmember Adrian.
So I'm also not married, so it's just, me and kind of the satellite family, brothers, sisters, mom, dad, stuff like that just kind of around the Houston area. I got family in California, and we're all staying. It's funny, you stay more connected when you're stuck at home and you're on the internet chatting with everybody on the phone and Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And so I think I'm doing a better job of staying connected with my family now, maybe than I was whenever we can get together and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun, but we're I think all fervently awaiting the day when we can get back together and spend some quality time together and stuff like that. But I think my family's doing well. The city, I think overall we're managing our way through as well as we can. We're having ongoing weekly meetings with our Office of Emergency Management, really trying to stay on top of things. I think they're doing a phenomenal job. Our staff has really stepped up, reorganized to make sure that we've got the right people in the right places, and just kind of keeping the city business and keeping those essential services really operating at a capacity that's not affecting the quality of life for our residents really in any type of negative ways. So I've been very proud to be a part of City of Pearland and our efforts, and I think staff's been doing a great job. And as a cohort, our city council, I think, has also stepped up in many ways to go out in the community, virtually as well as physically, to make sure that we're out there supporting our community as well in multiple different ways to make sure that everybody feels like, we're still moving forward, that we're not letting this set us back at all. So I'm very optimistic.
Very good. I'm happy to hear that. I'm going to turn it over to Sivaji. You have the question for council members, Sivaji.
We are talking to three young council members who have a lot of energy. I'm sure dealing with a lot of challenges. Just tell us, for the sake of audience, this podcast audience, let's little bit more about your backgrounds, and also what motivated you each to decide to run for the city council position at such an young age, and also what have you each found to be most rewarding part of your role, or maybe challenging? I mean, you're dealing with a public servant role here. I'm sure there's a lot of challenges along with rewarding. So I just want to see if you can share some of your thoughts on this. Let me start with Joel, since he's the youngest, I believe, here. So let's see what his thoughts are.
All right. Yes, thanks, Sivaji. So I was elected to city council when I was 18. I've been reelected since then and now serving as mayor pro tem for the city. I'm 21 now, so I'm a big boy. And we've been able to actually do a lot of great things on council. We're lucky to have a very productive, forward-thinking council and an amazing staff. We've been able to get projects done, improve infrastructure, while being fiscally conservative at the same time. So what got me to run is that I was asked to run. They said, hey, you should think about running for city council. And as an 18-year-old, I was like, no one is going to vote for an 18-year-old in Alvin, Texas. Like, no, you really need to think about it. I said, okay. So I thought about it and talked to my pastor. We prayed over it. And the next day, I filed to run for city council. It was a special term. I had two opponents, went into a runoff, and luckily, through hard work, dedication, and a positive message, we were able to get elected. It took a village to help me out in the campaign. I had some amazing people on my staff, had amazing supporters. And so we were able to make that accomplishment. I didn't know at the time, because I didn't make my campaign about age. I made it about improving the infrastructure in our city, keeping a fiscal conservative budget. And right after I got elected, I got a phone call from a newspaper saying, how does it feel to be the youngest elected official in Texas? And I said, I don't know. I didn't think about it like that. I probably paused for a good 30 seconds because it's something that never crossed my mind while campaigning. And I try not to let the young age of that I have bother me at all when I'm legislating, governing at the table. It's a team effort. We all have our different expertise. We all work together to make sure that we do what's best for the citizens of Alvin. And so that's how we've governed in my past 2.5 years on council, and that's how I believe we plan to govern for the years to come.
Dan, what are your thoughts? When I met you, I know you have a very active life. I mean, you've been involved with so many local agencies at different levels. And so what's your thoughts on what's your background and, what's rewarding and challenging on your part?
So my wife and I, we moved with our kids to Manvel in 2017. It was our first home that we bought together, and we had an opportunity to move to a few different places throughout Houston. And as we really researched the community, the school district, what was happening, the potential for the future, we both settled on Manvel as a place that we wanted to raise our family. We wanted to plant our roots. So growing up in my life, I never went to the same school for more than 3 years. We were constantly moving as a family. My dad was somebody that if there was an opportunity presented to improve the life of his family, he took advantage of that. So I lived all across the United States, and coming to Manvel, it was an opportunity to plant our roots somewhere and to say, this is the area, this is a location that we're going to raise our family in. And it's been a real blessing to us so far. The neighborhood that we live in, the community that we're a part of, they've really embraced us. And I think it's with anything, it's a two-way street. As you show that you care about other people, that you respect other people, that you're there to work with them, that they'll do the same for you. So my experience that led me up until this point was my wife and I were married whenever I was 18 and she was 20. And then 5 days after we got married, we moved up to Dallas to go to seminary school. During seminary, right near the end of it, my wife gave birth to our first son. And then a few months later, we actually, about a year and a half actually later, we moved to Japan to become missionaries there. And that's where my daughter was born. So coming back to America, I always knew that I wanted to do something that would help people, that would be able to improve their quality of life, that would really be able to serve them. And as we started to look at a place that we wanted to really plant our family, we decided on Manvel. I started to just go to the local government meetings because politics was something that I was interested in. I just wanted to be aware of what was happening in the city, what was going on in the city. And as I started listening and paying attention to what was taking place, the opportunity was presented to me to actually run for city council. The seat had opened up, and I decided to throw my name into the hat. And so I've been on council for about a year now. And the most rewarding piece of it has been that I'm able to be an example for people. I'm able to be out there and be engaged with the community and be engaged with the public and actually be somebody that cares for them, that shows them that your local government does care about you. And so being able to do that and work with my other council members, work with the city staff and making progress in our city is extremely rewarding. And then being able to come home to my kids and say to my kids, your dad did it the right way. There were difficult decisions that needed to be made. And your dad was willing to make the difficult decisions, even if it was against what everybody else believed was the correct decision, that you can stay true to your principles, that you can have morals, that you can speak truth, that you can stand for justice. I really want to leave that legacy for my kids. I would say, you asked the question, what's probably one of the toughest things about being on council? I had a lady give me the best piece of advice I've ever heard. She said, Dan, you're not pizza. You can't make everybody happy. And I was like, that is probably the best piece of advice, because it's true. When you're legislating and you're working amongst the team that you have as city council members, you're going to make a decision, and some people will be happy with the decision, and some people aren't going to be happy with the decision. And it's tough sometimes whenever your heart's in the right place. You want to serve, you want to do the right thing, you want to help people, to see that a decision you made makes people unhappy with you. That's probably been, for me at least, the biggest hurdle to overcome during my first year on council.
And I have a question to follow up on that. Knowing you and maybe talked in the past, you have traveled domestically, also internationally. Do you think there's something you learned from going abroad that you might influence your the decision making? Seeing outside United States, how they operate and live, or what are the conditions?
I haven't traveled nearly as much as Councilmember Adrian Hernandez, so I'd be interested to get his thoughts on that. Apparently, he's been to France, from what I've heard. So you'll have to ask him that question too. And the thing that I've seen is understanding that everybody has a different perspective based on the way that they were raised and based on the culture that they were raised in. Not everybody thinks the same. Not everybody's going to handle the situation the same. And accepting each other for the differences that we have and how those differences as a community can make us stronger is the only way that we'll be able to make progress. And so living in Japan, seeing the way that they did things, I've traveled to Brazil as well, and that's a completely different culture too. There's always things that you're going to like and there's things that you're not going to like. And it's working together and appreciating the differences that is extremely important.
Adrian, I've kind of looking through your bio a little bit. I know you're an opera singer, and you are a businessman. What motivated you to become a council member? There got to be some reason for it. And also, what's your background? What are your challenges and reward? What's rewarding? And you can talk about your outside the country, your trips, or if they had influence on your decision making.
Sure. You know, we have just revealed one of our most, I think, well-guarded inside jokes between the three of us. Every time we go somewhere, we make it a point to stress that Joel was the youngest elected official in state. Dan was married when he was 18, and I've been to France. So now it's out there. Sorry, guys. But, you know, I think my story is maybe similar but different in many ways. And I don't think it's as maybe involved as how I got to where I am now. But I would say that the thing that brought me to Pearland originally actually was a marriage also, but a marriage of a different type. I was married to a business, and so I opened a business in Pearland in 2008. And you know, when I first decided in 2015, I ran for council, and at that time I ran because I was just upset. I was one of those disgruntled business owners, and I had been dealing with the city and just had some less than, I guess, enjoyable experiences, if you will. And so I was just frustrated. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be the champion of the small business community, get out there and fight the man, you know. So, but once I got involved, once I got into the campaign, started talking to people, I think early on I kind of realized I was in it for the wrong reasons then. And so, you know, I didn't win in 2015, but what I did is I took the next few years and I kind of invested myself in the community. And I said, you know, I can still make a difference. And whenever I did that, I kind of realized there are a lot more positives going for the city of Pearland than there were negatives. And while I think there were a few things that needed to be ironed out, maybe with, you know, different codes and things that we had and how we dealt with our small business community, definitely we had a lot of really great things going on. And so when I invested myself in the community and got on a couple, you know, I was on the Parks Board and a couple other boards for some nonprofits in the area, and started attending more meetings like Dan said, you know, just showing up and being present and paying attention to what's happening in the community. You know, I moved to Pearland eventually. I think that was in 2013. I actually physically moved from Houston to Pearland. And the more I got involved, the more I kind of fell in love with the city. And so whenever I ended up running in 2018, I think that was running for all of the right reasons at that time. You know, I was running to really continue to promote the good things about the city, to continue pushing forward, I think, the projects and you know, different types of, I think to a large degree, they were kind of cultural shifts in the city. And I think the reason why those things were important was because the city itself was changing, and we had to adapt to both honor the history of our city and honor the traditions that have been a part of the city for, you know, over 120 years, but at the same time also recognize and prepare for not only the growth that we already had experienced, but the growth that we're going to experience in the future as well. So I think it was a really awesome time to step onto council, having both kind of the old, you know, traditional parts of the city, you know, be at a point where you had to work on you know, reinvesting and making sure that those things were both, you know, honored as well as restored and kept for future generations, but at the same time also take into account all of the new growth and new opportunities that you had to deliver projects that I think are really great for our residents overall, that I think we didn't have the opportunity to do those things previously because our population wasn't as big. And so we experienced all that growth. So I think, you know, my journey was maybe a little bit more straightforward in the beginning. You know, like I said, I went out and I was just going to run because I was going to represent the small business community, and it kind of shifted the more I got out in the community. I think, though, the most rewarding part of it has honestly been just the myriad of opportunities to represent the city, not just within the city itself, but I think also in our region, and kind of, you know, as Dan mentioned, you know, being able to travel and be part of other groups and I think learn from the experience that you've had, taking those to, larger stages and being able to share your experiences with others, but also learn from the experiences of your new cohorts. And so, this year I was fortunate enough to be elected to the chair position for the National League of Cities First-Tier Suburbs Council. And we represent suburbs that are outside of major metropolitan centers all over the country. In addition to that, I was elected to the board of the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee for National League of Cities as well. I'm the chair of the Solid Waste Management Committee for the Houston Galveston Area Council. It's our COG. And also being involved with Brazoria County Cities Association, and also just, this little group that we have today. Joel, Dan, and I stay in contact along with a couple other council members from, City of Manvel and City of Alvin, and some of the other cities from time to time join us as well. Even some cities down like, in West Columbia. Nobody even knows where that is probably, but it's fun being able to stay in contact and thinking about, regional planning and stuff like that, sharing ideas, learning from one another. I think that's probably been the most rewarding, both from just a personal enrichment perspective, as well as I think a representative enrichment experience, making me a better representative of the constituency that I serve. Definitely being put in these positions to learn as well as share and, compare and contrast and stuff has definitely been a benefit to my constituency. As far as challenges go, those are never ending, but I think that's part of the fun. You get elected and that they're going to be, as Dan said, tough decisions to make. You're not going to make everybody happy. I know a lot of people who don't like pizza, so I don't get his reference, but I think, yeah. So I just shattered his whole life. So I think the challenges are part of what makes it fun, but I think for me personally, the biggest one is, and I've said this, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, my least favorite part of politics is politics. I think just kind of the tearing apart of communities in the last 5 years or so has just made it really, really, really difficult to get out there and do what you consider to be the right thing, because there are maybe 6 or 7 different narratives all kind of battling one another at any given time, and trying to get and disseminate the truth, or at least what you consider to be factual information, to people, and back up your decisions to show them, hey, I'm making these decisions because I have the best interest of the city as a whole. And to Joel's point, trying to move the city forward while also being fiscally responsible. We have to make these decisions, and sometimes the information that we use to make these decisions isn't always apparent to people. And so I think it's, particularly people staying home, being stuck at home on their computers all day, really doesn't help to remedy that much. But I think that's probably been the biggest challenge, is just kind of the mixture of, maybe, I don't want to call it misinformation, but different sources of information, as well as kind of the infusion of politics into, I think, local governments, which traditionally has been kind of nonpartisan and maybe apolitical, if you will. Because we just, as you guys know, we provide roads for you to drive on and water for you to drink, and parks, except for Joel, we provide parks for people to enjoy. And
well, I mean, you all, one thing common for three of you is a county. You all in Brazoria County. There's a lot of growth to happen here. I mean, Brazoria County is one of the counties fastest growing, obviously. I mean, you're having the right vision. I guess there's a lot of things you guys can accomplish. Of course, they're going to come with a lot of challenges, but also that those challenges will bring eventually some rewards.
Sivaji, so I realized I didn't answer the whole question, but I know Adrian and Dan took most of the time. So let me try to sum it up real quick. So the most rewarding thing being on council is helping out taxpayers as much as possible, improving our city. Last year we had almost 26 capital improvement projects throughout the whole city, and we're able to lower the tax rate. And this year we are planning to not lower the tax rate. I mean, not increase the tax rate at all. we're going to try to keep it the same or even lower it. So that's the most rewarding part, is going out and helping out the citizens and seeing their faces and having them come up and say thank you. And with the most challenging part is, I think Adrian said it best, is sometimes politics is not the most fun area to be in, but when you do it right, you have strong convictions and you keep your faith, you're doing it for the right thing, right reason. And so that is, in the end, it can also be rewarding.
And had someone had said to me about 3 months ago that in a matter of a week, we would all be working from home, I would have said no way. But it's a testament to people's ingenuity and perseverance that is at the forefront of this situation. So granted, having said that, there's certain positions that are not be able to work from home. I don't think anybody would want to hear at this point that this is the captain speaking, I'll be working from home today, right? So that's not going to happen, I don't think, anytime soon.
There's a good Aggie joke about that. I'll tell you some other time.
There you go. Okay, very good. Well, I know that Councilmember Adrian, I believe like 50% of residents of Pearland works in the Texas Medical Center. And I was surprised, but actually probably not surprised if you think about it, because the proximity to the medical center, along with the quality of your neighborhood and overall the city, that attracts many people to Pearland.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got our own little mini medical center here as well. So it's a huge community that does live here in Pearland, that commutes and saves. So I think that's kind of a really something I'm excited about sharing with people on a regular basis. Particularly people who work in the medical center, and not even taking into account the fact that I think changes are coming. That's inevitable. We may not know what they are yet, and maybe we have to listen to our communities for a little bit longer first to figure out what those things are. But the improvements that have been made to 288 and the improvements that we're making here in the city going east-west as well to improve mobility and make it easier for people to live here in Pearland to make that short commute to the medical center, I think they're going to be huge. I mean, they're going to be life-changing, truly, whenever everything's said and done. So we're really excited about those changes and really, truly upgrades coming to the community. But I think in addition to that, it's kind of maybe made me personally start thinking more about, the regional transportation plans and things like that, and how those are going to change in the future. Because as cities like Manvel, and I think that's why it's so important that, we stay in contact with one another. Cities like Manvel are going to explode over the next 10 years. And so as the city of Pearland hits its growth potential, the medical center, and I'm sure the surrounding areas with all the biomedical manufacturing stuff that we have here in the city of Pearland proper, people are still going to need somewhere to live. And as our stock runs low, they're going to move into cities like Manvel and stuff like that, where, and I think they've got a phenomenal opportunity forthcoming to create these communities, design their communities, with a lot of changes in mind that I think are going to make it easier to live in this new world, if you will, that we're probably going to see here very soon, that involves, easier access and mixed use developments and things like that, to where retail maybe isn't so far apart or even just concentrated heavily, but, smaller developments and things like that, and that's obviously going to affect transportation planning, and building communities around, these mixed use developments, and building communities around schools and community centers and things like that. Manvel's dealing with that stuff right now. So the city of Pearland, I think, has to prepare for that as well. We've got to prepare for, kind of being a part of that, because the people that live in Manvel may work in Pearland, so we've got to plan for, moving people from one city to the next, or they may work in the medical center and have to commute through Pearland. So it's, I think it's really, again, of all the negatives that people talk about, I think there are a lot of really exciting things on the precipice that I think we're all getting the opportunity to just now start sitting down, thinking about, analyzing everything that's happening, And I think the fact that we're staying so well connected is going to serve our broader region, our broader communities, so much better than if we were just working alone and not learning and sharing. So,
Dan, obviously, the shutting down of the surrounding counties and cities probably have some kind of impact on your city also, because you all have to do probably internally a lot of coordination. So how is that affecting your decision making process itself?
So we've been able to look at other cities and see things that they're doing, things that they're trying, and really determine what is successful and what's maybe not as successful that we can adjust or tweak that would apply to our city. I don't think that there's a one size fits all solution to any problem. And it's really taking and looking at what Pearland's doing, looking at what Alvin's doing, looking at what Iowa Colony's doing, and saying, how can we make that specific to the citizens that live within our city? So that's one big piece of what's been happening with the virus, and at least what I've been looking at it as. I can't speak for all of council or for city staff, but the discussions that we've been having is saying, let's look at the federal government, what's happening nationwide. Let's look at what's happening at the state level, what's happening at the county level, and saying, how does that apply for our city? We all have a friend, his name's Cody Fasut. He's running for a state rep in House District 25. And I got to give him credit for this quote that he said. Originally, whenever the coronavirus started to break out and the pandemic really started in America, the big push was to flatten the curve. And as we continue to progress, we need to make sure that now that we've successfully flattened the curve, that we also don't flatten businesses at the same time. And so how can we protect the value of life and also protect the quality of life as well? And so it's really going to be a unique balance that comes in there. As a city, we also have a lot of people that are in oil and gas that drive down to the Freeport area, that drive out to the different plants over in the League City, Pasadena area as well. And the impact to that industry hasn't just been because of the coronavirus, but it's definitely been felt as well. It's been felt at home. And we've partnered with the city of Alvin and with the Alvin Manvel Area Chamber of Commerce to really come and support the local businesses who in essence support our citizens as well. Local businesses, I look at them as the glue that holds cities together. And so really supporting them is a big step in the right direction. So Pearland's definitely, they've done a few different things than what we've done. The city of Alvin's done a few different things, had different ideas, and we've been able to work with them and then also make it our own as well.
All right. Joel, what's your thoughts on this?
It started raining outside, so I had to hurry up and run in.
Oh, no, no problem.
Yep. So we were actually one of the first cities to adopt a stay safe at home order. And we were trying to do that we used that and we based it off of the experts that we had. We had a expert from UTMB to be able to guide us through this. We had an amazing emergency management team that could facilitate through the different trials. And we also got input from our Chamber of Commerce and local business owners to see how we can be able to keep our citizens safe and make sure our business stay afloat. We've been able to support businesses throughout this. We have partnered with the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Manvel to try to make sure that our businesses stay afloat. We have given out open for business signs to every businesses that was open up, that have opened up and that were affected by the coronavirus and the shutdown. So we try to take a proactive approach to this, and I think we have done a pretty good job at this. I think Dan said it perfectly. One of our friend Cody Vasut said we've done a pretty good job flattening the curve, so let's not flatten our businesses. And that's the same approach I believe our council members at the city of Alvin have, and I think all of us here on this podcast also have.
Yes, I believe you represent very fast-growing cities within this region, in particular the residential development side. So what do you think needs more attention now, and what would you like to see more in the future for your communities, let's say in the next decade?
So I'll go ahead and start off with that one. Adrian he's a perfect salesman for the city of Manvel a little bit earlier, just talking about the growth that we're experiencing as a city. Brazoria County as a whole from 2010 to 2018 grew by a little over 18%. Fort Bend County, which is our neighbor just to the west of us, they grew by over 30% during that time frame. So the 2020 census is going to be coming out here, and I think for not just Manvel, but the northern Brazoria County, you're going to see big spikes in the overall population numbers. And as a city that's drastically growing, infrastructure needs is a really big focus of ours. Not only preparing for the future growth that's coming, but also protecting what we have and repairing, maintaining, fixing, revitalizing what's already been in place. Manvel's history goes back all the way to the late 1800s. And so when that's in place, that means that you've had roads that have been there for many, many years, that there's the potholes that need to be filled, pipes that have been in the ground 40 or 50 years that need to be replaced and updated to certain standards. And so that's a really big focus of ours. It's also making sure that our comprehensive plan, our transportation plan, mobility plan, drainage, wastewater, water, that all of that takes into consideration the drastic growth that's coming. If we can be proactive in preparing things, then if you do it right, you do it light. If you do it wrong, you do it long. That's the perspective that a football coach gave me. And so as we make sure that we're doing things the right way, and we're really focusing on getting the pipes in the ground in the right location, so that way when this growth potentially comes or that growth comes, that we're already ready for it. Because playing catch up, once the houses are down, and the road's in place, it's a lot tougher to change a road once that happens. Meridiana subdivision has started to build within Manvel city limits. And right now they're focused on very much putting the roads in place and making sure that the roads are done right. Because once that bridge is in underneath the railroad tracks here in Manvel, you can't move that bridge. That bridge isn't going anywhere. So you want to make sure that you do it the right way. So as a city, that's really what we're focusing on, making sure that we're utilizing our taxpayer dollars for the allocating those resources to the correct places to maximize the potential that we have with the current tax base.
Joe, you want to share with us your thoughts?
Yes. So unlike Manvel has a great opportunity right now where they can create their own city. They don't have a town center yet. So they have the option right now, the council and the citizens, of molding the city that they want. As Alvin, we have developed since the early 1900s. And so what we have to do is we have to make sure that we improve the existing infrastructure that we have now by replacing or even expanding what we have. Alvin is, like all of us, we're growing. We're going to have the Grand Parkway coming in right through Alvin. We have Highway 6 and we have 35 goes right in the middle of Alvin. So those are avenues that create opportunity for us, whether it be through growing residential and growing our commercial population. So we have to do a good job of improving our water system, which we have. We have taken a proactive approach. For the next 3 years, we have a comprehensive plan to make sure that we improve the water system that we've had there since the 70s. We're trying to improve mobility throughout the city. Our main problem that we're facing is that the main thoroughfare in our cities are state mandated roads. So we have to work really well with TxDOT and try to improve those and make sure that traffic flows good into Alvin and out of Alvin. So we don't have a traffic jam. There's some days that our traffic is just as bad as Houston. And for a city of 26,000, that's not a problem we want. And, of course, with traffic issues, you're going to have traffic violations coming up. You're going to have more accidents. And that's not something we want.
Well, Joel, that's because everyone's just trying to get to y'all's brand new disc golf course. That's why. It's just everyone's wanting to get there, so there's so much traffic.
There you go.
Exactly. Well, they're all coming out of Manvel because y'all don't have anything for them.
Next question, guys.
So, we talked about transportation and, and also the rise in the ride shares such as Uber and Lyft. So have you given any thoughts as far as, because I've read in the future that people may not need or even want to own cars as much as they do now, with the rise in the share, share rides.
Yep.
With that being said, some people foresee a smaller footprint for homes. Instead of like your typical 2-car garage, maybe it's just now 1-car garage. And maybe you pay that off for an increase in open/community spaces / commercial spaces. So do you see that happening in your communities where people would drive less and maybe the houses, footprints are no longer as large as need to be now?
So that's a really interesting question about the ride shares. I think all of our answers would be different because the ride shares, the Ubers and the Lyfts that we have here in Alvin are not to the scale that are in Pearland. Pearland has far more Uber and Lyft needs than Alvin does, and Alvin probably has more than what Manvel has or Manvel needs. So that's a very interesting question. So I think as our city grows, we can look into that in a more extensively. I know that recently Alvin just got Uber Eats, and so that was actually a pretty nice treat for us to have, especially with the whole situation we're in right now. But I think you brought up lot sizes, the smaller lot sizes. So recently, and our council kind of has, so with Alvin, one of what's unique to us is we have the older population that has lived in Alvin for they're over 30, 40 years. They were born here, grown up here. And so they would like to see the Alvin they grew up in remain the same. But we also have a lot of newer families coming into Alvin that, like you said, that want a smaller lot size. They don't want a big yard to cut. They don't want the maintenance that has to go into it. So what council did was find a good median, a good compromise for that. So we implemented a mixed lot size in our ordinance, and that we did that in February. So where our average now for lot sizes is about 70. So some lot sizes would have to be 80, some would have to be 50. And from that, we were able to find a good compromise for our older citizens and then the newer citizens coming into Alvin.
So what about Dan? Do you have any thoughts on that special question?
Yeah, definitely. So Manvel is growing, and it's really changing from what you might classify as a town into a city. As Pearland grows, Alvin grows, Iowa Colony, which has just been exploding recently in regards to population, all of that, Manvel is right in the center of that. So Manvel is growing as well. And with that, we have 2 major highways and thoroughfares that go through our city. That's 288 and Highway 6. So we still do have a lot of farming. We still have a lot of agriculture that happens in our city. That means you got to have those big Ford F-150s, the big, big vehicles in regards to transporting whatever it is that you're transporting, whether it's hay, whether it's your animals. So a lot of our economic base from the standpoint of where our citizens are employed is outside of our city. We have a lot of people that go to the medical center, a lot of people that work at the oil refineries and the plants. And so right now for them, taking the means of an Uber or Lyft does not make as much economic sense for them just based off of the fare rates. To go from, one time I went from Pearland up to George Bush International, and it cost me almost $60 just one way. That for a budget for middle class, lower class, that budget wise, that's a lot of money. So I do believe that as technology rapidly changes, that there are incredible opportunities presented to partner to offer a diverse set of resources and services to the citizens. That be through Uber and Lyft, that be through other means, other modes of transportation that can be offered going into the future. And if any city is failing to look into the future, then I believe that they're failing to do the job that they were created to do in regards to servicing the citizens and preparing for that future. One of the things that I've seen with being engaged with council, Manvel City Council, for about 2 years now, the year beforehand and now my year on, is it goes back to it being a partnership between also developers and the city government. It's really looking and it's saying, okay, the developers coming in with doing a market study, saying these are the types of lot sizes we think would work best in this situation, here's why. Then city staff and city council coming and taking a look at it, saying from infrastructure standpoint, emergency services, emergency responses that need to occur, what works best? If we need to have some smaller lot sizes, maybe we can compensate in some areas and have some larger lot sizes. What are the needs, the unique needs of that city? And from my perspective, what I've seen with Manvel is we've really started to make progress in coming together and forming those partnerships and being flexible to what are the needs, not only of the community now, but also the community in the future.
And also, along with that question, I guess one of the questions we have here about the minimum parking requirements, I don't know if your city has any particular guidelines or decision-making in process on the minimum parking requirements for the development, part of the development requirements.
Our city does have some requirements for parking, but based off of the needs of the business, the market studies that are done, the transportation studies that are done, I think that you have to look at each case as unique and take it on a case-by-case scenario. You have a standard that's set, and you have reasons behind those standards to protect the, whatever it might be, the health, the safety, the general well-being of the citizens.
Right.
Then you have to take it at a case-by-case scenario. So right now, since we are still a farming and agricultural town, we still have a lot of people, I mean, it's Texas, people love their trucks in Texas. So there are certain space requirements that you want to allow. But as Manvel changes, as more subdivisions are built, that, you know, subdivisions aren't maybe as conducive to big trucks. You're going to have some smaller vehicles that come through, and there's then opportunities to adjust your parking requirements based off of the needs that are present. I'd love to hear what Adrian thinks about that as well from their city, because there's what's really interesting and cool is that as Manvel, we can look at Pearland and see what they've gone through over the past 20 years from a growth standpoint. Because Pearland really represents where Manvel's at now, but 20, 25 years ago. So we get to look at their successes, their failures. We get to learn from the trials that they've been through as a city and really take those lessons learned and apply them to us. So I'd love to hear what Adrian has to say about that.
But regarding the parking, you know, we're kind of in a really, again, there's so many opportunities on the table right now in the city of Pearland. I think this region in general, you know, when you look at our main drag, 518 Broadway Street is just, I mean, it's clearly overdue for an upgrade. And so we've been working with the state. It's a state road, you know, but they come to us and ask our opinion. They may not always take into consideration everything that we say, but I think we have a pretty good working relationship, and they've served us well, you know, up to this point. And, you know, but a lot of the businesses up and down 518 are probably going to lose a lot of their frontage, you know, and it's going to change dramatically how a lot of these commercial centers address parking and things like that. And here recently with COVID-19 being in the community, our mayor actually allowed businesses to relax some of the parking requirements temporarily because they were setting up tents and pickup sites and stuff for, you know, to-go food and things like that at restaurants. So I think those types of things, you know, they may not stick around forever, but it's showing us that business can continue to go on and serve residents without, you know, maybe some of the requirements being one size fits all. So, you know, as we expand 518, I don't know that Uber and Lyft is replacing people's daily commute enough to the point that we would, you know, drastically reduce the number of spaces required. But I think, you know, this really stuck with me. Very shortly after I got elected, I remember speaking to some people in kind of the older part of Pearland, and they were telling me how for them it was way easier for them to drive to Houston, to drive to Clear Lake to get their medical care and do their shopping than it was to go shopping and get their medical care in Pearland. And, so that really drove home the need for me, at least, to work on that east-west transportation options, on Magnolia, as well as upgrading 518 and pushing McCard all the way through, to make it easier, but also looking at, like our senior population, stuff like that, and thinking more about, maybe some regional transportation options for them as well that aren't necessarily cars. But like, Councilmember Castro is on the board of a group called Actions, and they provide free transportation for seniors to go, I think it's like grocery shopping and take them to their doctor and stuff like that. So even thinking about those types of things to reduce the overall burden, not just on our roads, but, maybe on our parking lots and stuff like that, to where that way you're able to transport multiple people. We don't necessarily have to have Metro come in, but we can look at some of our other community partners. I think we've done a really good job at propping up those community partners. We have some amazing nonprofits in our region that I think do a really great job. And, figuring out ways to involve them even more, I think is definitely going to be part of the conversation as we move forward. And now that we've had the opportunity to take some of the community development block grant money and give that money to some of those service providers to help them increase their impact on our region, I think is also going to change a lot, the landscape of transportation in the future, particularly with regard to specific communities that we serve, communities within communities, if you will. So, so I don't know. So maybe, we can lax up a little bit. I think even just in general, this morning, I was part of the HGAC's regional waste management planning group, and we were talking about, I've encountered some of these multifamily unit developments that they may not be able to offer things like recycling to their residents because the parking requirements are so strict that if they need to add an additional enclosure to house, a recycling receptacle, they may not have that option. So going back to the drawing board and kind of looking at a bunch of different things and ways that our current development code impacts decisions that are being made by our communities as a whole, whether it be the individual homeowner or, the multi-family unit or commercial development. There are a lot of considerations I think are going to be on the table moving forward. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know what those things are yet, but I'm excited to be part of that discussion.
Right. Just quickly I want to touch base this. I did not spend a lot of time on this question, but again, all of us, because of the COVID-19, we have to work digitally mostly. I mean, like what we are doing right now. So I'm assuming, all the, like any other county or city, you all conduct most of your day-to-day daily activities online. So how do you like it? I mean, do you think this is going to stay in place after post-COVID-19? And do you think these virtual meeting platforms have some good and bad to attach to it? How do you see going forward?
My initial concerns, number one, were with just trying to comply with, CDC guidelines and things like that, because I think that as elected officials, we should definitely serve as examples to our community. And if we're not doing something, if we're not modeling those good behaviors, then I think it's a bad example and a bad tone for the rest of your community. So that was kind of an important part of it. But as we've moved forward and things have kind of relaxed a little bit, one of my big considerations was, our mayor is in his 90s. And I'm really just, I love the man to death. I've learned a lot from him. He's been a great mentor and friend. And I just have huge concerns over having hit him in a room full of people, and it scares me to death. So I've kind of said to staff, I don't mind continuing with the digital meetings. One thing I think to note, though, I've really made it kind of a staple part of my not just my campaign, but I think my service to the city is talking about communication, finding ways to increase communication and finding ways to increase access for our residents to take part in city business. And I was really looking forward to seeing whether or not we were going to have an active increase in resident participation in our meetings now that we were online. And it's shocking to me, but it's the same people that show up to the meetings physically are the people who are in the meetings digitally. And, so I'm a little, I don't want to say disappointed, but I was hoping for a different outcome for those numbers. So, maybe there's some things that we need to tweak. I know there's still a couple hiccups and some people feel like it's not as easy to communicate in the digital setting, but we'll work through those things. I was just really, that was something that was interesting to me, that it really didn't increase the amount of participation, particularly given that people didn't have to rush home anymore and change to their Sunday best to go down to City Hall and hang out with City Council and the mayor, and they could just turn on their phone. So I hope that I was hoping for a different outcome, but I don't mind it so much. I think it's a lot easier, but I do like being there in person. So once I feel like it's safe to be around mayor again, because like before we started this podcast, we were talking with Jim Russ as well, and Jim said, I'm a handshaker and a hugger, and it's really hard for me. I'm the same way. So I'm out there shaking too many hands and hugging people, and so I want to be safe.
Dan, what's your thoughts? Quick thoughts.
So there's definitely been challenges with it. Our city's a little different than Pearland and even Alvin. So we're governed by the Texas Open Meetings Act, which we affectionately refer to as TOMA, which has certain requirements in it about meetings, the way that meetings can be conducted, being in person, how you can do it electronically. And thankfully, the governor has suspended certain stipulations and requirements within the act that is allowing a lot of the councils across the state to be able to meet virtually. So at some point, there will be the decision made by the governor to reinstate those stipulations, and we'll have to be cognizant of that. Also, what's a little bit different compared to Pearland and Alvin is our population does not trigger the requirement that we have to live stream our meetings. So the city of Alvin currently does live streams their meetings, and they have video recordings online. The same with the city of Pearland. So the city of Manvel has not gotten to that point yet, but we have been focusing on ways that we can improve our infrastructure through different technology means to get to that point. And I think the whole coronavirus pandemic has propelled that forward a little bit. So we've been meeting through teleconference, and it's been tough because I'm somebody that enjoys playing poker too. And you like to try to read people. You read their body language, you read their facial expressions, like I'm reading Joel's right now. And you don't get to do that whenever you're over the phone. It makes it the communication aspect a little bit more difficult whenever you're not there in person. It's been convenient because I can attend a council meeting sitting in my pajamas in my office, so that's nice. But at the same time, there is that person-to-person aspect that's missed that I think is something that is going to be more appreciated when people are able to, or at least for the city of Manvel, when we're able to meet back again.
We all hope that we can eradicate this virus sometime in the very near future, so we all can get back to some sense of normalcy. And Joe, if I were you, I would not be playing poker with Dan.
I am not a gambling man, unlike Dan. So you will not see me anywhere near a poker table.
Hey, I gamble with cookie dough and cookies. That's my currency.
That's what he tells law enforcement all the time.
Interestingly enough, I think we're also the only 3 elected officials probably in the world who don't drink alcohol. So that's kind of, well, maybe
that is true.
But.
Wow. Great to know. Joel, you have any quick thoughts on digital communication? Quick thoughts? You can rebuttal.
Well, I don't know. Dan and Adrian, they talk so much, they pretty much cover all the bases. So I'm a very big people person. I love seeing people. So it's been kind of hard transitioning to online meetings, but I understand the importance of it. Our next council meeting actually on the first week of June will be an in-person council meeting. Of course, we'll be social distancing, similar to the city of Houston, how they social distance their council meetings. Each council member is spread more than 6 feet apart. It's the exact same thing we're going to do with ourselves and city staff.
Well, along with that, I just want to include the other question we kind of missed today, I think, because of lack of probably time. I mean, what's your vision? I mean, going forward, what are you trying to accomplish within short term or long term? If you can quickly touch base on that, and how can we help as an engineering community to your dreams come true. I mean, if you can summarize that, and quickly, that'll be great.
Yeah. So my vision personally, I can't speak for all of City Council because I'm only one person, but for myself, I would love to see us address our mobility issue. We're a growing city. I love seeing more rooftops being built. I love seeing more commercial facilities coming in. We just got a Chick-fil-A. That's the best thing that's happened to Alvin in a very long time. But I guess for an engineering group, telling us what needs we can do to help y'all out as much as possible. What are some critiques that Alvin could be a more friendly place one of the things I tell people, I want to make Alvin the best place to grow your family and your business. And y'all are the experts at that. Y'all been at different municipalities. Y'all seen the worst in cities and y'all seen the best in cities. And we want to try to get what's the best in cities and put that into Alvin. So from an engineering standpoint, that's what we would love to see. I want to see mobility. I want to see that improved. I want to see our infrastructure improved. And I think I've said it enough. I want to try to do that in a fiscally responsible way. And we can do that. We can do that through, there's some charter things that we can do that's coming up here pretty soon. Our charter commission will have to talk about and citizens can vote on. Maybe putting more sales tax into our general fund. But then again, that's a whole nother hour conversation that I'll be more than happy to have.
Right.
I'm not like Dan and Adrian. I don't take up everybody else's time. But yeah, that's my vision right now is keeping up with the great team we have, mobility and infrastructure. Oh, and flooding. That goes along with infrastructure, but there's a reason why Alvin was the rice farm for so long. It's because we flood. It's almost naturally. So we have to address that and have a good working relationship with our drainage district.
Oh, thank you, Joel. What are your thoughts and what's your vision and how we can help and what's exciting?
Of course. So it's been really exciting to see what's happening in the city of Pearland, in the city of Alvin, just from a growth and the creative things that they're doing to address different needs of the citizens. And for me, I kind of look at it from a vision standpoint as two main things. I might not be able to protect, as our city grows, your way of life, but I can do everything in my power to protect your quality of life. Way of life is going to change as people sell land in the city. It's not going to be as much of a farming town anymore. It's going to be more subdivisions. We have 10 subdivisions that are in the works right now within our city. And that's a very high number. That's a lot of rooftops that are going up every single month. This past month, our residential permits being issued slowed down, but the month prior to that, for the month of March, we issued over 100 residential permits during that month. And that's, was definitely a big spike for us from what we have seen as our average. And the other main principle that I look at is with somebody that has 2 young kids, I want to do my best to make the city of Manvel a place that my kids are proud to call home. And that whenever they grow up and they have families themselves, that they want to live in the city of Manvel, that they want to raise their families in the city of Manvel. And I apply that to my own family, and I take that same perspective and I apply it to all of the 12,000 people that live within our city limits. So we got to protect the quality. We can't maybe protect the way, and we really want to make it somewhere that people are proud to live in. From a vision standpoint, it's really protecting the history of our city. Manvel has a rich plethora of a history, and so it's protecting that and really being focused on community-based development. It's how can we utilize the different bayous that run through our city, Mustang Bayou and Old Chocolate Bayou. How can we maximize the potential that's there? How can we utilize the green space that's available to create the opportunity for the community to come together whenever we're allowed to, and the coronavirus has passed, to come together and to really support each other. And that even applies to our economic base as well. From a development standpoint and an engineering standpoint, I think everybody since Harvey has been very focused on flooding and drainage. And that is a really big focus for our city moving forward. And so if there's expertise that can be brought whenever all of this development's happening, you're having concrete that's going on ground that previously was just grass and soil. And so how can we be creative and utilize the many years of experience to protect our citizens in that manner? And that leads me into one of the exciting developments that's happening in our city. We last year purchased 117 acres that is being utilized as a regional drainage facility. So we're partnering with multiple entities, with local drainage districts to really take advantage of that. It's going to be a tremendous benefit because Highway 6 is considered by the state as an evacuation route. Well, during Hurricane Harvey, whenever people were evacuating from Alvin or people were trying to evacuate Manvel or from other areas, they would get trapped because Highway 6 was flooded. So this drainage facility is not only going to help out Highway 6, but as more growth comes, it's going to be an incredible asset for our city. A few of the other exciting developments, and one that I'm really excited about is Joel and I, we both serve on the board for Actions Inc., which Adrian mentioned. He excluded me from that earlier, but that's okay. I'm not offended at all. But but we both serve on the board there, and we're working on trying to get a congregate center within the city of Manvel. A congregate center is just a space where we can transport our senior citizens to that maybe live by themselves or don't have a way to get out of their house. And they can come to the center in a safe, secure way and be able to engage with our volunteers, with our staff members as a part of the organization. We have over 900 people that are over the age of 60 that live within our city. That's a tremendous number. And so we do currently have what we refer to as like a Meals on Wheels route for our city, but we don't have a space for them to gather. We either have to have them transported to Alvin or transported up to Pearland. So having a space in our city to service our senior citizens is incredibly important. And there's just a lot of other exciting developments that are occurring, new businesses that are opening within our city that just add to the amount of different amenities and consumable items for our citizens. And then they were still actively working on putting together plans for what we're referring to as our city center, our municipal complex. The city owns 160 acres that we are looking on figuring out how we want to position everything within that acreage to really serve the citizens and make it something that the citizens are proud of.
Right. Adrian, what are your thoughts on?
Oh boy, there's a lot. I think one of the things I'm most excited about that's upcoming is probably the realization of our city's multimodal plan. That's just gonna be really cool. I think there's, again, a lot of opportunity given that we have this cluster of cities all kind of experiencing this growth and stuff at the same time, that we can work together to do some really cool regional planning that I think is gonna be really of a benefit. Like Dan said, focusing on quality of life, that's something that we can definitely have an impact on. But I think in addition to that, I mentioned already that Pearland is kind of nearing its growth potential. And we do have to start looking at density and figuring out how we can do more of these livable center mixed use. I think the reign of the traditional big box anchor retail developments is maybe coming to an end. And, just trying to be forward thinking about how we're going to utilize the space that we have left in the city to really deliver something that's going to be useful. There was a council meeting not too long ago. There's another council member, Councilmember Orlando, who's a little bit younger than I am. But we were talking about, lot sizes and things like that at one of our meetings. And I made the comment, it's like, as a single guy in this city, I don't know where I'm supposed to live. The house that I currently have is way too large. I mean, it's just too much for me to take care of. So trying to find an alternative, trying to find somewhere where someone like I can live, or someone like Councilmember Orlando, can live, to where we have access to all of the amenities and stuff that we kind of have come to expect, from, I think, what's considered to be a city that's able to compete regionally. That's stuff that I think is going to be on the forefront, at least of my vision moving forward. And, hopefully I can convince enough of our other council members to kind of, go along with that vision, obviously taking into consideration all of the I think essential items as well, like drainage and transportation. All of those things are going to be affected by it. And if we can start thinking about density and stuff now, we can start planning for the drainage projects that we're going to need to support, denser developments, and start thinking about transportation planning that we would need to, again, denser developments, or, just kind of what the future holds is up in the air right now. But I really love the regional stuff. I really love taking part in the regional planning, because Pearland, being the third largest city in the Houston Metro, the largest city in Brazoria County, we sit in 3 different counties. We've got 5 different school districts. We just have a lot of things to consider anytime we make a decision, and how that one decision can impact all of these other entities that participate with our municipality on a regular daily basis. I mean, the opportunity that City of Pearland has to be a regional leader in so many areas, I think is right now. If we miss this opportunity, I think we're going to be kicking ourselves in the butt. So thankfully, we have a really great staff and a really great council, and we're trying to get ahead of this stuff. And like I said, keep the city moving forward, and don't focus so much on the doom and gloom, but look at the opportunity that's ahead of us. And we've got historically low rates right now, so we've got a TERS that's about to come online, drop that taxable value on the city, in just a few years, and hopefully our tax rate's going to drop by, a pretty big chunk, maybe about 20 cents. That's going to be a huge benefit to our residents. So we have the opportunity to make the investments now to deliver the city that's going to have that phenomenal quality of life for our residents in the future. We make those investments now, and I think we're going to be set. So that's it. That's all I got.
Well, that's great. I mean, like you all, obviously you each of you dealing with different challenges here. I mean, Pearland obviously dealing with existing population, dense population, how to make it better. Joel is obviously wants to have a well-planned rooftops and commercial. I mean, I think, there's a lot of growth potential there. I think if it's a well-calculated plan he needs, I guess. Adrian is about quality. I guess, you all here have unique visions, and whatever we can do as an engineering community, we'll be happy to help support your vision. I mean, that's really interesting to hear from like different perspectives of vision from each of you. I mean, that's great. And, Chau is probably going to close this podcast, but I just want to thank you all. Maybe I may have a lot more questions to really ask, but we have to respect your time. Maybe we have to do this again somewhere. Hey, Chau, you have any questions? Next question.
Any last things that you would like to share with us or the public as far as what's happening in your communities, exciting things that are happening?
So I mean, there's always something happening in Alvin, right? So we're a growing city. We have an amazing council. We have a great staff, and we have even better people living in Alvin. So we're growing. We have over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 residential development neighborhoods coming into the city. Some with houses more than 300, some houses more than 100 and 200. So that's all happening with the city. And of course, with us growing, we're going to have to address the infrastructure issues that come along with that. The budget is coming up here pretty soon. We are trying to be as fiscally conservative as possible. And our staff does a really good job with that. Our staff has been getting awards for their fiscally conservative budget for the past 30 years. And we're going to plan to do the same thing this year. Not increase taxes. If need be, we'll have to dip into emergency reserves. The federal government has helped out a lot of cities and counties here in Texas, so we plan to see what we get from the federal government and see how we can help the city out. As from a city standpoint, that's pretty much it. Business is still booming. We're open for business. All of our businesses have been amazing during this time. They have helped us out. We have tried to do everything we can to help them out. And I cannot express how blessed we are for the people that we have in the city. I tell people all the time, I have 26,000 bosses, and every single one of them is amazing. I cannot express how great my constituents are.
Well, thanks again. Thanks for your time coming up, and go ahead, Joel.
I want to thank all y'all for having us on. I really appreciate that. Y'all are doing good work. Is there anything you need? I have so much more I would love to talk about. I had a packet of information ready to give out. So if there's any time that
I have an idea for that. We're going to have a happy hour next time.
Okay.
We can do it over a game of poker.
No,
I'm not a poker player, but I can hold a water bottle. That's all. I don't drink.
Yeah, we don't drink. Yeah, so this water's fine.
I can have a water bottle. That's it.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do that. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I really enjoyed it having you on the panel. I mean, this is
Thank
great.
you.
All right.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you guys for hosting. We definitely appreciate it.
With that, I want to thank our panelists, Joel, Dan, and Adrian, for participating and sharing your thoughts. And I think we have fun and we actually learned a lot from you. As far as our listeners, please keep an eye on future podcasts, The Ground Down, for discussions with regional influencers, elected officials, industry organizations, clients and friends. And so that is a wrap. Thank you all and take care. Bye-bye now.
We hope that you have enjoyed today's episode. If you would like to hear more episodes of The Ground Down, please visit www.ehrainc.com for updates. Make sure to check out EHRA Engineering on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for all kinds of cool content.